Well, welcome back, man. Long time no see, like a week.
I know. Yeah. We can't keep ourselves away from each other.
Heck yeah. Man, there's a lot to talk about. But first, I wanted to go over a couple of questions. Basically, I put it in a group chat with other e-bike creators, asking them if there was any questions that they wanted to address with you guys. But before we do that, do you have anything you want to like announce to the people for your brand, for yourself, any maybe new team members on the team, just things you're excited about?
Dude, there's a lot I'm excited about. Well, one, XP4 is like probably my most exciting thing in my entire life right now. So really stoked about all the amazing improvements in that product. You know, it's number one selling electric bike for the last 4 years, and we made it way freaking better without having to touch the price. So that was sick. And then actually, what's cool, just now announcing. So the guy that like headed up that project, XP4, Austin from our team, is now the product manager and leading up product over at Juice. So we've actually traded him within our companies, but now he's a Juiced employee, and we're really stoked about what he's gonna do because honestly, man, like you see what he did. Yeah, and this is probably too business focused or whatever, but like you see what he did with a $999 budget. Like
Yep.
that's not a lot of budget, and this dude put TFT display, torque sensor, upgraded every aspect, was able to, between him and Matt, apply pressure to the supply chain to get us the best pedals, the best uh chain ring, the best, fenders, like everything. And he managed to keep price like inherently the juice price point sits higher. It's higher voltage, performance, all that stuff. And so I don't know where it's going to for sure sit in terms of MSRP, but in that 1500 plus, right? Whether that's 2000, 2500, I don't know exactly. But all I know is if I give this guy more budget to work with because he's going to be operating at a higher price point, he is going to absolutely clean up. So I think he's like the perfect guy to go put on the juice team. So yeah, that's
How
kind of one
long
of the
how
big
long has he been
things.
with you guys?
He's been with us now for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years, and he's basically been molded by Matt from our team that whole time.
Yeah.
And so, like, first, real experience in product, right? He had a ton of experience being a wrench. He's a professional downhill rider. So he's like an excellent rider. He still actually carries his pro card, but
That's awesome.
um, he like came in pretty green and is just one of those guys that's a sponge and over that time has really developed. And yeah, now it's like this is a great opportunity for him to take that next step. And like he's very, very prepared and ready for it. So
Is it just
yeah,
him? Is it just him that's, I guess, in part of that right now?
yeah, yeah. So it's like me, Rob, and him are in the whole company meetings right now. So yeah,
Dang. Yeah,
yeah.
so I have since we're on the juice thing, I have a question based around juice this is from Maximum Charge. He said, "Are they going to make their juice bikes actually higher power, higher speed, or high voltage, or keep it within the class 3 realm like Lectric?"
I think we are certainly looking at this operating with the same DNA and expectations that Juiced had before. And one of those expectations is that higher voltage, that higher speed. And, this does fall out of the three class system. And
Hmm.
so we are trying to get our arms around how can you operate outside of three class e-bikes, but in a responsible, way without compromising performance. And so that's one of the things we're solving for and bringing in, experts in the legal standpoint, conversations with people for bikes and trying to do it the best way. But at its core, my expectation is that'd be so lame if we acquire Juiced and then we come out and it's like it's not doing the things that Juiced was known
Yeah.
for, right? Which is high voltage, high speed, high performance.
Yep.
So we absolutely have to do that, right?
Yeah.
And just finding the right balance of how to do it within, legal guidelines and guardrails and everything. We have our ideas, which we'll hold on until, launch. But yeah, that's
Is
something
that
we're
all
working.
unfamiliar territory for you, I guess, as far as like going down the class three realm or past it?
Well, so actually, the very first XP, we originally were thought we were going to launch and do it at 35 miles per hour. So the very first XP was 899 and it went 35 miles per hour. And this is back in early 2019. It was sick. And when we were going to get insurance was when we were first notified of the three class system. And
Hmm.
so we were still like building the business, but we had gotten some prototypes and everything.
Hmm.
And that was our first ever exposure. But I'm very comfortable going fast. The amount of prototypes that we've created here at Lectric that are wicked are, a long list. So we're very familiar on the performance side of creating bikes like that. But when you're the number one selling electric bike in the industry, there's expectations to be, the poster child and lead the industry in a certain way and adopt the, heavily supported regulation. And so we feel that responsibility. Juice operates in a completely different world. It is not, held to those same standards. And again, we're going to approach it in a different way than anybody else is right now. And our plan on how we approach that, we think works for both regulatory reasons, but also for keeping the brand within,
Do you think
what
that's
its
going to like pave?
expectations are.
You think it's going to like pave the way for other brands that are
I think
like,
so many people are going to copy
yeah,
what our solution is because we are investing, a lot of money in trying to get the right approach
yeah.
from legal and consultation from other industry groups. So once we do that, I think people are going to look at it and say, yep, that's probably how we should have been doing it. Whether it's like a Super 73 or a Ride One Up.
Hmm.
They have bikes that operate outside of the class three, and it's a scary place to sit. But the way we're going to tackle it is going to make a lot of sense once that's unveiled.
Is it safe to say that you guys are going to be expanding past what people already know as like the juiced bikes, the ones that are already out there? Maybe you guys are going to come out with another, like a new one to kind of kick off the brand.
Yeah, I think, Juice made really great performance. The form function of the bikes sometimes weren't always like quite there. And then the industrial design was obviously something that has always kind of challenged that that company. And so I think we're going to take new takes on classics
Hmm.
that everybody really knows Juice for, but we're going to, we're bringing in industrial design experts for it. So, for example, the XP4, Joe Gray is probably one of the most talented industrial designers in this industry. He, designs the bikes of your favorite e-bike creators e-bike. This is the guy that does it. And so we've brought him in and he's overhauling the design for the juice lineup. So we got a lot of sick designs coming and that will feel very new. Title and name, we don't really know, but form and function, I think is going to be, or at least the categories of bikes are going to be pretty familiar, but, just bringing it into 2025 is important.
Wow. So you're saying 2025, like the timeline could be sometime this year, maybe?
Well, shoot, I guess no, probably not. I guess I operate on a different timeline because I'm already seeing stuff right now, but I don't think consumers will see the product until my goal is spring 2026 is like
Wow.
I would love to just kick off. And so we're going full speed right now and like the amount of development we've made in the last month
Yeah.
between, because engineering. A lot of this we're outsourcing out, right? We're not using the electric resources. So Austin is having to work with third-party engineering and whatever. A lot of how Lectric used to function in our early days. So we're calling up some of our old contacts for, engineering work again, being like, hey, we got this new company. We want you to help with this project. So it is actually super fun. It feels like I'm almost like redoing the first chapter of Lectric again now with this portfolio. And so it's super fun and exciting.
So it kind of like re-sparks that fire, I guess. Not
Dude,
to say
yeah.
that that fire is ever down with you, because I feel like you're always super motivated with your business, but I feel like because it feels so familiar, yet foreign, it gets you really motivated.
Well, yeah, totally, man. And like when I think of Lectric, I've built an amazing team, like whether it's finance, product, whatever. And because I've built such a good team, I don't go as deep into any department as I did before, right? I like Austin and
You allocate
Matt
those
and
things
Callan.
around to other people, right?
Yeah, and so it's like now the team is so small and scrappy over at Juice. It's like it's allowing Rob and I to be more involved and really sink our teeth in, just like it was in the early days of Lectric.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the whole juice thing is I want to try to keep it like, I guess, as we segue into talking more about electric, is there ever going to be, because this was also part of the topic, is there ever going to be any overlap with electric and juiced, or is that just something you want to keep always totally separate?
I think it's too early to say. I think,
What I
sharing
mean
some
by that, real quick,
resources.
what I mean by that is like even down to like the the engineering that, let's just say, went into the one. Just
Yeah,
similar
sure.
engineering. It doesn't have to be like this is a collaboration type of thing.
Yeah. I would say in respect to a conversation like that, like absolutely, we're going to use the leverage and economies of scale, over at Lectric that will help influence stuff over on the juice side. And so, for example, Lectric has a significant order quantity for a product like the RST Renegade, right?
Hmm.
That fork. And so we've built a great relationship with RST. I'm not going to be surprised if, as Austin is specing out components that he goes to an RST or even an RST competitor because they want to get cozied up next to electric to help us spec really good components on that bike. So I think we're going to for sure use the leverage of electric to make juice as good as possible. And, as things are innovated and developed, one of our more recent improvements is the TFT display on the XP4. It's
Yep.
beautiful, it's clean, it's perfect. Maybe that from the jump is on the juice bikes, or at least take some of that software rather than starting from scratch. Totally possible, but I don't know that we'll for sure know, but until we get there. But one of the things that was appealing about us making this investment and acquisition was we know the leverage and scale and success of Lectric, and we find it's very transferable to any other company that we would own. There's just a
Gotcha.
lot of that benefit. Like, for example, shipping rates, like Lectric pays so little on shipping rates compared to everybody else. Whenever I've looked at, acquiring a competitor and I look at them, it's not unusual for us to be 70 or 80% less their
Wow.
shipping. Yeah, no, it's insane. I
Holy
think
cow.
Juice was literally like 80%. We pay 80% less.
Holy cow.
So think of all those dollars you save,
Yeah.
and then you take those dollars and you spec the bike either better or you decrease the price, right?
Yep.
Electric, we have a very simple process where we have a margin floor, right? We won't ever operate below a certain margin. We got to always have a good business. But we also have this idea of a margin ceiling, which no companies ever on earth have.
Hmm.
And that influences how we spec bikes. And so that's actually one of the reasons why you see the XP4 so good. It's like over the course of 2.5 years, it's the number one selling bike that whole time, gets a ton of leverage and everything like that. And so over the course of its life, we drove the price down
Hmm.
by renegotiating with our suppliers every couple months and then we reinvest that savings into the next generation of the bike. And we actually did it midway through, right? With the 3.0, we did midway through, we saw a ton of volume from the XP. So then it was like, shoot, let's put hydraulic brakes. And we actually did a running change in the middle of
Yeah.
that product life cycle. So, yeah, I'm going to literally just use the same business formula for juice, where I want people to like genuinely be surprised when we put certain components, whatever the price point is, whether it's, I just want you to be surprised at like how on earth did they spec it this way? Because that's what is expected of us. We launched the XP4 at 999 and people are, surprised at how did they do that?
I mean, you just
That's
said it right. You just said it right. You're like you have the customer in mind. That's why I always like when I had a conversation with somebody recently about I saw on the trail with Lectric, they were I was like honestly like they're one of the most forward-thinking brands. And you said it right there is you have the consumer in mind. You are either specing the bike better or making it cheaper for them. Either way, it's for them.
right.
You know,
Totally. Yeah.
and I
That's
feel
the
like
whole model.
it's inspiring because there's not enough. There isn't any. First off, not a lot of brands will even talk this candid, but there's not enough brands that I've spoken to before that kind of have that mindset. Now, whether they take that mindset from you, highly doubt it. I think you're on a different level, but
Well,
that's good.
fundamentally, it starts at the business founding. And this is why so many people can't look at it this way is most of our competitors come into the space and they have a little bit of volume and then they go get venture capital funding. And the challenge is venture capital has a different approach compared to, we were bootstrapped and then got private equity. So we immediately jumped to like have to have a mature
Hmm.
sounding or foundation and a sound business. But so venture capital, one of the approaches is growth at all costs. It's okay to lose money. It's okay to lose millions,
Mm.
tens of millions of dollars because you're going to scale the business. Once you scale the business, you're going to renegotiate your rates. And once you renegotiate whether it's shipping rates, container rates, your component costs, now you're finally at a point where you can make some money and whatever. The difference between Lectric and those approaches is we, as we unlock that, our expectation isn't to make more money. Our expectation is to stay within our floor and ceiling and margin and then make the product better or make it more affordable.
Hmm.
And that is like the really cool thing. That's the main reason Lectric time and time again comes out with product at price points that just don't make sense. And it's really not just the bike. Anybody can do a folding e-bike at 999, but when you do it with the TFT display, custom, aluminum brake levers, the chain ring, Stealth M24, the alt, it's just like every aspect of that bike got better. And it's certainly, I would guarantee, the most expensive 999 e-bike on the planet right now.
I think
You
it's going to
know,
make everyone. I said this to you when we were having dinner that one night. I think it's going to make everyone up their game or lower their price dramatically.
yeah,
Because I don't know if I said this to you, but I said it to Tim, where I was like, the 4.0, I know you don't like to call it 4.0, but now you changed it. It's hard to get
that
that. It's hard to get
it
out of that
is.
mindset.
It took
Yeah,
me months, man.
I know. I mean, I was filming the video today, and then I caught myself so many times saying 4.0. I'm like, it's the four. He wants it to be the
Yeah,
four now. He wants to
yeah,
take the point oh off. No, so when I was telling Tim, I was like, I don't know if you guys want to hear this, but it's positive in my eyes. When I ride the XP4, it feels like the one.
yeah.
And Like the one with the geometry. I mean, yes, you're not getting the pinion system, but I'm saying the
Sure.
geometry, the overall build quality. I'm looking at the one right now, and I'm like, it from certain angles, it feels like it looks like the four.
Dude, yeah, so that 0 degree stem, the ergonomic grips, but then we upgraded the brake levers because like the one was our first time we like really focused on touch points,
Hmm.
right? And like the rider cockpit and like where you're like how far your arms are extended and
Yep.
everything. And so like honestly, like when Rob and I first started this company, like we didn't know a ton, right? And it's been over the course of almost 6 years now that we've learned all these little details. And so, our latest bike launch is always going to kind of be our best bike launch because it just takes the learnings of all the previous iterations, successes, failures, package it together. And yeah, I'm really stoked. And the talk about the market, it's going to be really interesting. So, people have tried to show up to my doorstep before, right? I'm very familiar with people trying to come at my company and my industry and take from our success. And some of our competitors have launched foldable e-bikes that are good foldable e-bikes. I will
Hmm.
absolutely give them credit. They are good foldable e-bikes at a 999 price point. But the thing is they're not built like us, right?
Hmm.
They may go there, but they may do it for their initial launch and then shortly after increase their price.
Yep.
Or it sits on the shelf for a while and then it's like, you know what? Now the XP4 is out. Like if you look at the two biggest competitors who like really tried to go at us, it's the Fold One, which was launched at 999, and then the Portola, which was launched at 999. And the Portola is now $1,100, and the Fold One is at 1299,
Hmm.
right? And so it's just that they're just not built to be as uh, foundationally strong to weather any environment, whether it's just pressure to innovate or the tariff environment, whatever it is, like foundationally, we're built to adapt
Do you
and
think it's also has to do with volume? Like the amount
yeah,
of, I
for
mean,
sure.
because at the end of the day, like their price point could be what it is because of the volume that they're bringing in. Um,
Yep.
and everybody that's watching this knows that you guys bring in a lot of volume. And I said that in the videos I'm filming today, like over 400,000 people or were on the last bike, and your goal is to have that or more on this new
Oh,
version.
for
And
sure.
I think it will be for sure. I mean, like when we were on the trail riding around the rim, people would see it. I mean, they were asking right away, like, "That's the new Lectric? That's the new Lectric?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "Yeah, dude." Like they were like, "This is amazing. When's this come out?" Like I just
Right.
got the 3.0, and it was
Yeah.
funny when we were at dinner, you were just like, "Yeah, it's like you're looking at the future." Like when you look at the older one, it's nothing wrong with the older one because I'm looking at the older one right now. There's nothing wrong with that bike. It is fine for what it is and fine for most riders. But then when you look at it next to the new one, it's almost like you leap forward 4 or 5 years
I know.
in design, and I would say even tech as well, because I wish I had the other one here so I could do like a full comparison looking at them. But going off recollection, like, and that's why I look at the one. I'm like, wow, it's like similar saddle feel, similar reach. I mean, you have a front suspension. One doesn't have front suspension. Similar brake feel. The display on the four, I believe, is better, right?
Yeah, it's way freaking better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like what's absolutely psychotic of us is that the 3.0 still was the number one selling electric bike in America. Like there was no reason, like although our people have tried to show up at our doorstep, we still outsold the best selling, like the next best selling foldable by almost 10 to 1. Like this
Wow.
is how big the gap is, right? So we're already like crushing second place. Actually, technically, the second best selling foldable in America is the XP Lite.
Well,
So it's
I
just
got a
like,
question real quick then. So
yeah,
is the foldable segment in the e-mobility space, like, where would you say that is in the ranks of most popular selling or most popular consumed bicycle right now?
you know, the it's really tough to make a statement of it because it's so heavily influenced by Lectric. So like if you
Mm,
were to take Lectric out of it, it's actually not a huge category.
gotcha.
But when you bring in the Lite and the 3.0 and now the XB4, it's quite sizable. And so it's probably around 25% of every electric bicycle. We have a lot of trackers and we have a lot of data, and I could get you a more concrete number, but um, it's quite significant, but a lot of that is being led by just the sheer volume that Lectric drives through that category.
Cool. Do you
Yeah.
guys ever plan on doing another foldable bike, but maybe bigger?
You know, the problem is like people like the foldable aspect because it's transportable. And if you keep going larger, you're adding on
Yeah.
even more weight. And already foldables, like the light bike is super popular because I think it weighs like 46 or 47
Yeah.
pounds and it's like easy to bring along with you. RVers love it. Um,
I think when it comes to the bigger bikes, people only want them foldable, at least from my experience, for to stow away in their garage,
yeah,
anything that takes
sure.
up space. Yeah, I see what you're saying. More so, the camping like space loves a 20-inch because it's lightweight, easily compact.
Yeah.
I had like a cruiser style foldable bike from another brand, and I believe, I mean, it was step through. It was heavy. I mean, it was probably like 75, 78 pounds. Like I wasn't lifting that in the back of a bed of a truck very easy, you know?
No, yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, so I don't know that we'll go too much higher. Juice, the company we purchased, is they had the Jet Current, which was like it's so sick to ride, but it's also I don't know how much it weighs, but it weighs a ton. And it was like, is this like it didn't, actually sell very well. So it's like weight is a real barrier for people to like make the investment and everything. So
This was
yeah.
so interesting. I mean, like I know we keep going back and forth on topics of juice and electric, so it's going to make it a little difficult. I'm going to chop these up in like clip segments as well.
Sure, totally.
But so our last conversation I talked about, I asked you, I was like, hey, do you ever see yourself doing something else? And this is before you announced the juicing. I could tell when we were talking, like it was on your mind, like off
Yeah.
the record type of stuff. But I was like, hey, like, would you ever think about going down like a super scooter type of route, stuff like that? This could be, I'm not gonna speculate, but this could be a route where like juice could be that area that you could dabble with other e-mobility devices.
Well, yeah, totally. And, Lectric is always open to good partnerships that fit with us. So,
Mhm.
although we've acquired Juice, don't, I'm not going to be surprised if we acquire another company. That makes sense. That we feel like, oh, we can instantly be a value add because, our economies of scale are so good, our shipping container rates, whatever, are so good, where it's like a flip of the switch and
I got to
it's
I got
now
to say I
profitable.
got to say then because if you you just said acquired another company and in that group chat I'm in everybody's saying I wonder if Lectric will acquire e-cells. Let's just get off the
Yeah,
record right now.
sure.
You thinking about it?
Because they're so similar to Juiced, I don't know. I don't think so. But again, I'm always open to, possibility of acquisition. And if there's a good underlying business, and that always comes just through our evaluation of looking at a business's books and really drilling in where like when we looked at Juiced, like that is a company Rob and I loved for a very long time. Like since we were in the industry, like Tora was like one of the real pioneers, and he would post his YouTube videos and be at a factory and like give really good in-depth analysis. So like early in our career, a lot of our knowledge of e-bikes came from Tora and Micah Toll's like ebikeschool.com.
Hmm.
So we learned a ton through that and through him. So one, we just really liked the brand, but when we saw the opportunity and looked at the underlying business, we immediately saw like, all right, this is a company, to go bankrupt and get auctioned, you're losing money. Like that, just as blunt as it is, like
Yep.
it's losing money, it's bankrupt, whatever. And we look at it and it's like, if we just shift some of our practices or scale or whatever and move it here, it will instantly become like better than break even. It will actually be a profitable business just from the day we take it over.
Hmm.
And so when there's opportunities like that, it makes it very easy to convince ourselves. And we're staying curious and active, but also there's a heavy lift over the next, hopefully 10 months as we want to relaunch Juice. So is it something I do again in 25? Maybe not. But with the right opportunity and right brand for sure, I wouldn't say never.
That's good to hear. Now, to close out the juice segment, is there a timeline or date or anywhere that people can go to for more information to expect to see like coming soon website? Like, do you guys have the Instagram handle? Is it out?
We are actively working on legal process of
Oh,
all of
yeah.
this because the problem was is that they owed a lot of groups a lot of money. So that's why our first thing was strictly
Mhm.
through YouTube because that was the only thing we were able to access. And like we can't access their email list to like send out an email. Like we expect to, and I would have expected to by now, but there's
Mhm.
a long process with providing all the legal documentation that we're now the owners and they owe these groups money and unsecured creditors. And so, there's just a bit of a dance that has to be done. But I'm hoping keep an eye on juicebikes.com because that is where everything's going to happen. And we're planning over the next 9 months uh, to have that be our regular cadence
Okay.
for communication. We're going to put design series out so people can actually start to see what bike we're designing and
Awesome.
tracking towards. So like we're trying to take a very like open approach
Mhm.
because what's special about Juice compared to the first iteration of Lectric is there's 100+ thousand existing juice customers through their site. Not
Mhm.
all of them bought bikes, but a lot of customer. And so getting their feedback and input before a product goes live is going to save us a lot of heartburn later. So yeah, we're going to have the design series and updates on the site. We're going to start the communication, emailing people back, and then throughout this whole process. I still have a lot of remedies to do. I've been vocal about how there's customers that were burned where, they got paid fully upfront,
Yeah.
and some of them were like $2,000 or $3,000 deposits, and they lost all their money. So I got to go fix those, but I can't fix those until I get into the Shopify. And then, in turn, email and reach out to them and try to figure out, all right, do I get them electric bike or do they just want to check? I don't know. So there's some work to be done on that front. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, there's a ton of work to do there. So
So in
just stay
short,
on top of Juice, you
so
know.
in short, Juice is probably going to be able to be checked out on their website by the end of 25, I would assume.
Like people are able to visit the website and
And just get more information, I guess.
dude, yeah, I would really hope that like even this month I would be stoked. Like I'm really trying to push because we have all the documentation. It is just painfully slow,
Yeah.
like lawyers on the other side, not on our side, to try to get this because I want the flow of communication to begin because it doesn't sit right with me that even though I have no responsibility to these unsecured creditors, like the people that put down their deposit, it doesn't sit right with me that
Yeah.
they're currently just being, yeah, they're just left out. Right.
Will the
So
price stay similar? Because I remember you were talking about you're giving Austin now a new platform. He's used to X amount of dollars with
yeah,
Lectric. Is the goal to keep the juiced in and around the same price point, delivering the same type of power? I know tariffs are going to be an issue.
sure.
Nobody can predict the future, even 6 months from now, on where juiced will be and the tariffs will be. But is your overall goal to be juiced, stay what juiced was, as far as
Roughly.
price points as well? Okay.
Yeah, I clash with Rob on this, right? Because I'm always obsessed with the idea of like how low could I like possibly because like Rob may come out with a spec, a certain performance,
Hmm.
and he's like, yeah, this could be great at like, $2,000. And then like, I'll argue like, hey, if I negotiate it down, like our cogs down, what if I can launch it for like 16.99 or 17.99? And he's like,
Yeah.
well, no, if you can negotiate it down, just give Austin more money to bring it up. So it's a very active and evolving conversation. But, I wanted one of my goals, and this, I don't think this is a ridiculous goal. At one point in the industry, Juice was the second best selling electric bike in the US. It would be cool to get it back to that, right? Where it's a true market leader. It's pushing a lot of volume. Um, so that's one of my goals. And in order to achieve that goal, you got to have price points that are attainable. And there can be a spread in terms of, you know, higher performance options available. But I do like, more butts on bikes is one of the things that I really dig. It's a great mantra to have. And so, yeah, I want it to be attainable. I want to get people riding, and I'm gonna, lose a lot of sleep in order to try to achieve that goal for
I
sure.
think you will, and it just keep us informed. I mean, like we're here for that reason too. Like you give us the news, we'll put it out there for the people
Yeah,
to spread the word for people to understand that like Juice site is down for this many months. But so as we go forward, we see where you stand with Juiced, and you have the new bike that came, or I guess depending on when you're watching this video, everyone, it came out. It's been out now however long. I mean, this video is going to come out on the 7th because your bike comes out on the 6th. So I'll have the preview for everyone to see on the 6th,
sweet.
and this segment will be on the 7th. And you want to break it down a little bit as far as like I'm happy that you don't do a new version every year. Like people like they do a new iPhone every year, or bike companies like to do a new bike every year. You give people a reason. Like I like it when brands give people a reason to be like, yeah, I want to upgrade because that is a big enough jump.
Yep. Yeah, so basically the way we operate is like we try to upgrade as fast as we possibly can with real substance. And so sometimes that is a year, and it's usually faster when it's a and so I'm gonna maybe do a business brain dump, and you can cut all of this if it's not
No, I
relevant.
like
But
I'm gonna cut this in like certain absorbable clips that I think are gonna be good for people to hear, but this whole podcast is gonna be up.
cool. So like here's an example is like the 3.0 and the XP like first came out. That was our whole business. It got to a large volume and scale. Even 4 years ago, it was already the number one selling electric bike model in the US. And so it unlocked a lot of economies of scale in those first three iterations of the bike. And we were able to get a lot of savings. When we go into a category that we've never sold in before, so think of the off-road version, the X Peak, right?
Mhm.
We go into the X Peak and we instantly like get a ton of volume by going into that category. It allows us to renegotiate our price for a product or a part like the Renegade fork and like be able to get a bunch of price concessions that we had never had before because we had never sold that type of bike. So then it's like we just, you know, made the bike, more affordable to make, basically
Mhm.
increase profit. But the problem is we have this ceiling and floor model that we can't operate outside of. And so once it gets outside of that, it's like we need to take the money that we are making outside of it and reinvest it into making this bike better. So then we did the color display, we did the torque sensor, and then we did an industrial design frame that had that really nice tubing and down tube on it, and then like we reinvested. And so that was in a year because it went from like not having any volume to having a ton of volume, and it became the second best selling off-road e-bike within its very first year. And so it's that type of stuff that like influences it. On the 3.0, we already had economies of scale because we were selling insane numbers of it for a while. And so it takes us time to get the operational leverage. And then it's like, there was a point where it's like, all right, we could like do the better brake set, because Star Union had come to us. But then after the pedal maker and Star Union came to us, like trying to improve the like fundamental, just core mechanical parts of the bike. That actually triggered an exercise where it's like, wait, let's go to like all the factories that like we don't work with that we kind of somewhat view as a little bit of out of our league, where it's like, oh yeah, they'll never work with us. Like we're a 999 e-bike. Let's actually go to them and show them the volume and see if they're gonna like come play ball. And that was an awesome exercise. So then we were like, that was a couple month long ordeal, but then we were able to package it all together. And then it's like, shoot, what else can we do? And then when the TFT display, that was one of the craziest negotiations I've
How
ever
long did it
done.
take for something like that to develop? Because I feel like that's like it's pretty much way ahead from what you already had. So I don't, is that
Yeah.
was that something that was in the making for a while?
Yeah, so we've been working on iterations of the TFT ever since the one, right?
Okay.
And so the electric one, we just did the color digital. Well, it's still a LCD display, but it's preset digital and everything. So it's not like a real great like color TFT form. And so but the price was just so high. And like also it just takes a lot of design aspect to get it good. And so we've worked on that for, my goodness, it's been a year and a half because we started on it with Electric One, but there was like, there's no way we can make the price work. But eventually, Lectric's volume continues to grow. And also, in the bike industry and in the e-bike industry, sales have actually come down significantly globally for e-bikes. And so now these suppliers who, need volume in order to just come through their factory to keep the factory lines moving, suddenly are a lot more interested in the value volume players like
Hmm.
Lectric. So now it's like we became like the hottest commodity over, throughout the world for components because we just order so much that everybody wants to work
Well,
with
that's
us
what you were
because
just saying about the pedals. So the pedals you were talking about were the quick release ones.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
were saying that like, did you use a different manufacturer for the other ones that are on the one
yeah,
versus? Okay.
yes, yeah. So it's these excellent. So this pedal manufacturer is the largest and number one in the world. They make the pedals. If you think of the world's largest bike companies, and I know the two or three that are immediately popping into your head,
Mhm.
they're basically all getting 100% of their pedals from this one
Okay.
factory, right? Well, anyways, all of those companies' volumes are way down, right? So they reach out and they want our business. And it's like, pedal is not all that exciting, maybe to some people, but to me, it was super exciting. It's like, oh, shoot, they're willing to like, and so they come to us asking what we want. And, we had a quick release pedal, but we were like, this is our pedal. If you can make it better
Hmm.
and not get crazy on price, like we will absolutely go with you. Well, they did exactly that. They made the pedal like just to touch the feel, the thickness of material is so much better than what our old quick releases. And they engineered a new custom. First time they've done this, but the new splined inserts make it way easier to
It
snap
was
in and
way
snap
easier.
out,
It was
right?
way easier when I was doing the quick release for the video. I was like, it came out way easier, and then usually I have to use two hands to put it on the other one to
Yeah,
put it on. I was able to just like hold the pedal and like push my fingers and it right in,
dude,
no issues.
right? So it's like,
And the grip pattern, in my opinion, is just a bit better. It's a slimmer, lower profile pedal as well.
dude, another example. Yeah. And so like the whole, pedal was improved. They show up with this prototype and then they show up with a price that I was like, oh, they really want our business, right? So then it's like a no-brainer. And like for them, a lot of our part makers, just by getting on the XP,
Hmm.
right? If your only work is to get on the XP and you get on it, you suddenly now have 10% of the market share in North America is on is just XP. So now you can say, yeah, my pedal is on 10% of the e-bikes in North America. Like
That's
just by
insane.
getting on that bike, you now have that. And that is worth a lot to a lot of companies because they want to sustain, high volume or show certain growth or whatever. And so yeah, that it's like a win-win for everyone because I get something I'm super stoked about for like a price that works. They get volume, and then the customer gets something that it's like
It's
a nice
better.
little surprise. Like our previous quick release pedals, like I don't think I ever really received any complaints about them.
That's what I was about to
They were
ask
fun.
if you received complaints or like recommendations from, because I know you listen to customers, but I didn't. I was wondering if you received any complaints where you're like, "Hey, we need to fix this." Like people are having problems with this.
No, not at all with the
That's
pedals. It's
funny.
literally just one of those examples of like, shoot, if we can do this, like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
let's just make this thing better. Like, there's a lot of things like the key position people
That's
wanted to
exactly what I was about
change.
to ask you. I was going to transition
You
to
know,
that. What made you go to the key position? Was that enough complaints?
oh, well, I've been complaining about it since the very first, XP we made. But for a while, Lectric, it's a heavy lift, like making your own battery. Like there's a lot more testing and investment that has to happen because this
Hmm.
is, a custom battery that we've had made for us. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of investment in tooling. So we were just slow to do that. And then the amount of time it takes for something to get approved from a testing standpoint for a battery, it's literally like 9 months of some rigorous
Did you
testing.
have to go through the UL certification because it's a new, like another UL certification because it's a new model, or were you able to kind of carry that certification over?
No, you always got to restart it. So as soon
Gotcha.
as it's a new model, you always have to redo the UL 2849, complete form, and then the batteries also have to go through UL 2271. So it had to go through a ton of testing all over again. And it's just time. So I'm so stoked. Like I swear to you, some people would have considered it like enough of a reason to call it XP4 if all we did was change the key location, because
Yeah.
but that was the number one complaint. The second biggest complaint was reach, which like I somewhat experience on like my long rides where it's like, yeah, your arms are hanging out because it is a far reach.
You can
But
experience, you have much better experience if you go from the 3.0, ride it for a few hours, and you jump right on the one. You immediately
yes,
recognize that. That's the reason why I was like, yo, this feels like the one. Like, because the
the
one is so
cockpit
high
comes
end.
in towards
Yeah.
you. That's a huge aspect of it, is
Yep.
it shrinks in the cockpit, makes it much more comfortable. And so like customers were straight up, reversing their handlebars
Mm.
around their whole stem and folding assembly. They would uh reverse around, and we would see this on Facebook and Reddit, and we're like, dude, that's not safe. Like the bike isn't designed for that. Like,
No.
and it's probably gonna break. And so then for a while it was like, all right, when we reversion this bike, we have to bring the stem in, and we just, yeah. So
Did you
it's
change the head tube angle as well?
yes, the head tube angle does change as well. So it's
Okay.
that whole front face,
Yeah.
it gets adjusted. And so that was like customers told us that and that. But then there's like the reviewer feedback where I always watch every review of one of my bikes and I'll compare, A to B. I'll watch what they say about another brand and bike and then what they say about ours. And then it's like, all right, everybody really, likes Altus. I've historically believed that like, the entry level Shimano componentry is pretty similar across. Like I don't truly personally experience much of a difference between the Tourney and Altus, like aside from the shifting aspect, but the
Hmm.
derailleur itself, I think they are very similar. Unless you go up to like an ESSA, like it's hard to find performance differences.
I
But
mean,
everybody kept bringing it up.
the shifting aspect going from the 3.0 to the 4
Well,
is
yeah. So the
light
trigger
years ahead.
shifter I freaking love,
Yeah.
right? So the trigger shifter I will absolutely give its credit. But so people kept bringing up like, oh, it's the thumb shifter, it's the turning and whatever, and it's like, all right, well, like this is like the best selling e-bike, not just for the industry. I keep saying that, but for Lectric, like it should get our best treatment. So like if I can figure out how to put the 8 speed on it just so people can stop, because that's what happens when you make a bike that's like really good for the value. People make their pros and cons list, and like any good reviewer, you got to come up with cons for it.
You got to
But
nitpick.
it's
You got to find those
you
nitpicking things.
got to nitpick, right? And people kept nitpicking that one, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really sick of that. I'm just gonna try to delete the nitpick. Like, if
Yeah.
I can go through all the things that they might complain about, it's like, oh yeah, the grips might twist. It's like, all right, f that. I'm gonna make these lock-on grips. Like, I'm gonna do anything I can possibly do to delete a complaint is my
Well, you're
goal.
right there. You're deleting upgrades for people. Like, yeah, no need to upgrade the bike. The bike's good to go
Oh,
for a while,
dude,
forever.
totally.
So I
Yeah,
only have you for a couple more minutes, but so I wanted to segue this into topic which we ended our last video on, which was tariffs. You know, it's a hot button topic. Who would have thought this? Like on our bingo card, on our last conversation, I was like, so how are the Biden administration putting in 25% tariff? How's that ever affected you? And you were saying that, you're going to be in business no matter which administration. You were saying that
yeah.
before, and how there will always be ebb and flow. And right now, it's a lot of up, going up and up and up. But it's so uncertain to where, at least from my side of things, me looking, I mean, you being a business owner, you're watching things come over on a container and it's a bit different. But I'm saying like when I'm looking at the tariffs, it's like not a guarantee because it's like today it's 100, tomorrow it's 125. Oh, we're going down to 90. So it's like, how do you as a business owner, when you're seeing these tariffs, let's just say skyrocket to 300%, and then tomorrow they're back down to 75%, how does that work when you're getting something off the water?
Dude, I have like relentless optimism, right? So I'm very positive. I've built a great business with a great team. So we're fortunate enough to have built a war chest to deal with, the changes that come with all sorts of aspects. And so, I'm just weathering the storm is a reality. It's like, you look at it and it's like, oh, that's like a silly number. Like that doesn't even seem realistic. And then
Yeah.
it changes again. It's like, oh, okay, so yeah, it was silly. Even they thought it was silly. And then it's like, oh, there's a pause, whatever. And it's like, so it's our job to just run a really good sound business that can weather a lot of these things. And sure, you're going to go through periods where you may be break even, right? Or you may be going through periods where, it's perfectly calibrated, and you just got to make sure that you have an adaptable business where, you know, I look at, tariffs roll in, and yeah, I have worked really hard on moving supply chain and not planning to pay tariff at all. And then here I am hit with one. And then it's like, oh, all right, well, if we hold price, maybe we get to spend a bit less on marketing because now, like I had mentioned, between the my competitors that were used to be 999 are now 1,300 and $1,100.
Well, that's where I was going to ask you there. How did you, with the tariffs going on right now, I just saw you drop the price to 3.0. I looked on the site when I was doing
Yeah.
today's video and I was like, this is the cheapest bike right now during like what
Well,
is said to be the worst economical time.
to be transparent, those bikes were imported before
Oh,
tariffs had
gotcha. So
taken
the tariff
effect.
was, the old one was on it.
They're not even affected by it. And then also, we're just clearing it out because we're launching the XP4 in 5 days from now. So,
Yeah.
we're trying to like make a super good deal for people because if they pull the trigger and then the XP4 comes out, I want them to be like, oh yeah, it's XP4 came out, but like I also got it for 799. So like they're pretty stoked. But yeah, I think we fundamentally like we haven't touched prices since
That's
the
amazing.
tariffs were announced, and the fact that like my competition has all or at least many of them have increased price, and I'm not only just holding price, but I'm
Mhm.
actually making a huge performance leap in my products, like is actually insane and psychotic, but it's from day one been kind of the recipe for Lectric is like just get really scrappy and figure out how to offer the best price for the customer, and it will always pay you back. Like
I
that's just
mean,
the reality.
it's crazy because you're the only. I've reached out to like a lot of different brands to talk about this topic. You're the only one that wants that's. I don't want to say wants to. You're the only one that will like take it head on. Like I'm not asking really tough questions either. I'm just asking for like, what's the business plan? How is this affecting you? Because there are businesses that are going out of business, and they're going out of business based on, oh, the tariffs are going to stay 300%. You know,
Well,
why? Like,
dude,
what does it take to hold on just a little bit longer?
we get like the day they were announced, like I grabbed my leadership and we got in the room and we started game planning like, all right, operationally, what can we start doing today in order to minimize the cost of this tariff, right? And so we instantly are coming up with a lot of creative ideas, renegotiating certain contracts like right away. It's like, all right, we are going to renegotiate our ocean contract, our fulfillment contracts, whatever. We're going to take this as an opportunity to get support from anybody that touches our business.
And are they all
Components.
willing to renegotiate right there? They're like all eager to negotiate because they want to survive too.
Well, yeah, I think it's that. And we just have a really, really good relationships with all of our partners, like throughout fulfillment, logistics, supply chain components. Like I I would bet money if you were to have conversations with many of those people or reps or owners, their favorite customer should be Lectric because A, we push a lot of volume, but also like we always pay on time. We always are transparent. Like we always work with them. Like if something goes wrong, we don't try to nitpick or like charge them a bunch. Like we are
Hmm.
always very collaborative. And you do that because you build up equity with them. And every now and then you got to cash in on the equity. And for years, I've been building up equity with these good relationships. I go to a lot of dinners, I hang out with them, outside of work. And I just try to become, I want to like the people I have to work with, and I want them to like who they have to work with.
Hmm.
And, you know, after April 2nd, when I give them a call, it's like, hey, like this is a moment where I kind of got to cash in on all this goodwill I've built up and like
Yeah.
let's work together because I will continue. It goes a long way when you communicate to them that it's like I will go the distance. I will hold price. I will push a lot of volume if you can support me a little bit, right? And they look at it, it's like, how on earth is he doing this, right?
Yeah.
But you get buy-in when, again, my team very likable, so it like we get the buy-in and it's amazing.
So, a question here from Mike Rochester. He says, first of all, congratulations on acquiring Juiced. Um, and he says, question is, because of Lectric's position as a US based company, does being headquartered in the US provide any advantages in terms of tariffs? Specifically, are there tariff waivers? And as he said that, I said, you know what? I actually was going to ask the question, are there any exemptions? Because I see exemptions in certain areas when it comes to tariffs. Is there exemptions that you could file as an e-bike company?
Yeah, unfortunately, no, not at this time. There isn't. I'm hopeful that'd be awesome if they do come. But yeah, what I think, what is it? Tomorrow I have a meeting with like our congressional representatives for Arizona to like try to inform them on the impacts to electric. So it feels like I somewhat have a voice. We're members of People for Bikes, which is the industry group that
Yep.
helps have dialogue with all these other um departments. And so like we get to feel like we're at least involved and really aware too, right? When you're informed and aware of what's going on, you're more equipped to make the right decisions. And that's just one of the things that's at play right now. So, but aside from that, I don't know. I like working with my team right here in Phoenix, and we got a pretty sick team. By the way, Mike, you can cut all this, but you should tune into our live stream um on May 6th. It's at 9:30 a.m. It's going to be pretty rowdy. Like I'm going to
Absolutely
drink
will.
several because you've seen my presentation style, but this time I'm doing full send with my whole team. And
Double
like
clap.
we got whiteout shirts. We're doing our second banner drop in the rafters.
Oh,
Like
hell
it's gonna be
yeah.
super rowdy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I would recommend tuning in.
Hell yeah, as long as there's some two claps, right?
Oh, there will be no shortage of shoe claps, I'll tell you that.
That's funny. Well, is there any other send off you want to do? I know we only briefly talked about tariffs. My last question about tariffs would be how optimistic are you that they're going to come down, and what are your predictions, not just for them coming down, but like just overall the e-bike market right now?
Yeah, I think tariffs, what do I know?
I
Clearly
mean,
I
what do
know
any of us know,
nothing
right?
because whatever I thought before was wrong. But uh, my blind, uneducated guess is I presume the China tariffs are going to stay at a higher rate. Probably in that 40 plus range. I think where they sit today is too high, and it's probably going to walk back to something that's at least somewhat sustainable and able to be rationalized. But then when I look at the rest of the countries, I presume many of them are going to get to that about 10% range where the 90-day hold at 10% pause at 10% is actually going to just stretch out to that's the rate going forward. And I find that to not be completely ridiculous or hard to overcome. So that's kind of part of my expectation. And then for the industry, I think it's a really challenging time. Like it's really lame to see for not just the company and its owners, but its community it built is like the e-cells news.
Yeah.
And that is not the first headline. We've seen a lot of those headlines over the years, but there's going to be a lot more of that type of news coming out, whether it's more rounds of layoffs at some of our competitors or just closures or bankruptcies. The day it happened on April 2nd, instantly Lectric started getting a lot of phone calls of possible companies that wanted to maybe exit or hand the keys over or whatever. Because it is if you were losing money and there are several that were losing money before the tariffs with the hope of maybe becoming break even in a 2025 or 2026, even if their country they're importing from is at 10%, that 10% is still going to be significant enough where they can't they it's just now out of reach, right? And so
Hmm.
they have to go raise more capital, but hard consumer, and it's unfortunately going to come in the form of debt. It's just not gonna work out. So people are gonna have to really rethink the way they approach their business and maybe their growth aspirations. I don't fully know, but unfortunately, I do not think it's the end of the headlines of this company has now closed its doors or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. I mean, I'm hoping that we see, as bad as it sounds anyway, I'm hoping you see more restructuring, like you're saying. Like,
Yeah,
okay, then maybe that's their survival tactic. They're going to survive maybe another 6 more months just to keep going. Maybe then
yep,
they rehire, kind of get their foot back in the door. But yeah, I mean, that's the prediction as well I have too. I think there's going to be a lot more brands falling off. Some of the
yep,
brands we've all come to, see regularly,
yep,
are probably going to fall off pretty quick. With that being said, I mean, you're killing it.
yeah.
We always enjoy these events you put on, man. Like it's such a honor and a privilege to be able to be a part of those events and be able to see the next iteration of a product. And I look forward to seeing what you do with Lectric and Juice, man.
Dude, yeah, I'm super stoked. I'm like, as crummy as some of the headlines are around this industry right now, like, I'm probably never been more excited than right now and more bullish on Lectric. I think, I anticipate a really big 2025, pacing for our biggest year yet. We're flagship model hasn't been relaunched in 2.5 years. And like now with all these upgrades and everything, like I think we are going to have a really fun year, and I'm excited for what's to come for Lectric, and so I'm just keeping my focus on that. And in the background, also mixing some things up with Juice to hopefully ensure it has a very successful and big 2026. So, yeah, man, I'll be busy, and I'll follow up, and let's one of these times for your podcast, let's get Austin on here, and I
That's what I was
won't
just
even
about to ask if
chaperone
we could
him.
do that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, just get you and him talking bikes, and as some of the information comes out about how we're going to approach the next gen, I think he could be really cool to chat to.
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you popping on here. And everybody, be sure to check out the all new XP4, which should be out by the time you see this video. One last thing, which one's your favorite color?
Stratus White. I just think it's clean.
Ooh, I love the new green.
I know. And okay, what's terrible is Robbie and I both didn't love like the pine green. Like we thought it was cool. But so when we were first placing our POs for frame color and everything, we did not order enough pine green because at media day it seemed like everybody's favorite was
Everybody
pine
wanted
green.
it.
And I was like, oh shoot, I definitely. So I am not going to be surprised, and I'm going to apologize in advance if the pine green ends up getting sold out and I'm back order further than all the other bikes because that's just an oopsie by me, and I'll rectify it through future uh, part orders. But cool, man. We'll
Hell
stay out
yeah.
of
Thank you,
trouble.
man. I'll see you.
All right, later.
Bye.